The mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, has effectively come out against immigration by coming out and stating that New York can no longer operate as a safe place for illegal immigrants. It will no longer be a sanctuary city. Talking about the fact of revoking the sanctuary status of New York City, this is quite fascinating because these are all the people who claim to care so much about illegal immigrants, and they vote for things like the policies that open up the southern border en masse that caused this mass immigration crisis that inadvertently led to people like Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis sending migrants to places like New York City as well as Martha's Vineyard, but these people are NIMBYs, and none of that actually matters to them because they claim to care about these people, but when their heel meets the road and they actually come to the fact that they have to deal with the circumstances that are presented to them based on the words that they've espoused, turns out they don't really care all too much about immigrants, they care about what affects them. Let's go ahead and get into what Mayor Eric Adams has to say. Now we get to the footage of Mayor Eric Adams talking about the fact that illegal immigration is going to be a threat to New York, and New York City will be flooded with illegal immigrants in every single neighborhood, that New York will no longer be the same city it once was, and that they can't sustain. I remember this argument being made by people at the southern border constantly, that they couldn't sustain the amount of illegal immigrants coming into the country. Let's go.
Support. And let me tell you something, New Yorkers. Never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an ending to. I don't see an ending to this. I don't see an ending to this.
I mean, you could stop advocating for illegal immigration en masse. That would probably help just to start. I don't see an ending to this. I don't know, change the policies that you aspire to put in. It's that simple. You could start there at the base level, admitting you were wrong, but they don't even say that they were wrong. It's just, we cannot sustain. We can't do this. There's never a moment where someone in power like this will utter the words, I was wrong.
This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City.
I remember people saying that this issue would destroy southern border states, destroy southern border towns. I don't remember any of these people caring.
We're getting 10,000 migrants a month. One time we were just getting Venezuela.
Okay, I'm going to cover that. 10,000 migrants a month. There's roughly 150,000 pouring over the border every single month. That's roughly 1.8 million a year. Yeah, but he's complaining about 10,000 a month. But you're supposed to be a sanctuary city, bro. You should be able to sustain all of the illegal immigrants because you care so much about them that this is a sanctuary for them to go and be safe, right? Right?
Now we're getting Ecuador. Now we're getting Russian-speaking coming through Mexico. Now we're getting Western Africa. Now we're getting people from all over the globe have made their minds up that they're going to come through the southern part of the border and come into New York City. And everyone is saying it's New York City's problem. Every community in this city is going to be impacted.
Okay, I want to cover the fact that he's saying it's New York City's problem. It's like, no, it's everyone's problem. But the fact is, now you have to deal with it too, rather than just saying, well, we're a sanctuary city. We care so much about immigrants.
The $12 billion deficit that we're going to have to cut, every service in this city is going to be impacted. All of us. And so I say to you, as I turn it over to you, this is some of the most educated, some of the most knowledgeable, probably more of my commissioners and deputy commissioners and chiefs live in this community. So as you ask me a question about migrants, tell me what role you played. How many of you organized to stop what they're doing to us? How many of you were part of the movement to say, we're seeing what this mayor is trying to do, and they're destroying New York City? It's going to come to your neighborhoods.
It's going to come to your neighborhoods. Well, it's already been in mine, and it's already been in millions of people's neighborhoods. But again, Eric Adams being a NIMBYist, someone who only cares when it's in their backyard, turns out that they're actually turning against illegal immigration en masse. And I expect this to actually be a thing that will happen in, I would argue, large portions of the country. You will see the tide shift amongst large portions of Democratic voters that actually had to deal with the I would say, the blight of illegal immigration to the degree that it has plagued the United States.
All of us are going to be impacted by this. I said it last year when we had 15,000. I'm telling you now, with 110,000, The city we knew we're about to lose. And we're all in this together. All of us. Staten Island saying, send them out to Manhattan. Manhattan is saying, send them out to Queens. Queens is saying, send them out to Brooklyn. No. It's not the game we can play. Open the floor up.
So he's talking about the fact that they're ushering them to different little sub-communities throughout New York and saying, well, this portion can handle it. And he's saying, no, New York cannot sustain this many illegal immigrants. Period. I really want to see someone like this walk back their position and say, I was wrong. We cannot sustain this. It's not economically feasible. It was one thing when we were taking care of people who we just thought were coming from places like Mexico, or when we saw Venezuela had a collapse and we were taking care of Venezuelan refugees. But we can't have refugees from all over the globe flooding into the country, destroying the culture, and annihilating the economy. And you realize it's bad and how much of a heel turn this is when people like Elon Musk are just saying yikes and that's it. And people like George Alexopoulos, who is a fantastic artist, I couldn't recommend it enough, go give him a follow. He says, isn't this what he wanted? A real mayor would act, not ask. What are we going to do? And that's absolutely true. We're moving on to what the Babylon Bee has to say. Sanctuary City bummed now that it has to do the actual sanctuary part. Spot on. And then we got this meme right here. If the illegal immigrants see what a hellhole New York City is, maybe they won't come. Yeah, it's always possible. So we're going to go ahead and jump into an article right here from Timcast where they talk about this, and then we have one from the New York Post. Let's go. Mayor Eric Adams wants to revoke New York City's sanctuary city status amid a major migrant influx. Shocker, the NIMBY strikes again. Adams appeared in court on Thursday asking a judge to reevaluate the city's sanctuary status. Not in my backyard. The law of Sanctuary City was in place long before I became mayor. I'm following the law as a law enforcement person. You know we follow the law. My God, Kamala Harris' level of speaking, it's absolutely pathetic. We are now in court now, today. It's Kamala Harris speak. We are now in court now, today, as the day that we are in court today. It is now. But anyways, we are now in court now today asking the judge to revisit this law to deal with this humanitarian crisis because even when they decided to put this law in place, no one thought we would be dealing with the humanitarian crisis of this proportion. Again, he just repeats himself over and over. If you want to hear Kamala Harris speak, you don't have to listen to Mayor Eric Adams. You can just go listen to Kamala Harris and how disastrous every single time she has a press conference is. Let's go ahead and listen to this clip.
Law of Sanctuary City was in place long before I became mayor. I'm following the law. As a law enforcement person, you know we follow the law.
Okay, so there is a question I want to ask about this. Did you support the fundamental of sanctuary cities before this? Was this something you believed in? Or was it just, well, it's the law, so we follow it?
We're now in court now, today, asking the judge to revisit this law to deal with this humanitarian crisis, because even when they decided to put in place that law, no one thought that they would be dealing with a humanitarian crisis of this proportion.
Man, and I say, you didn't think you would be dealing with a crisis of this proportion. The southern border states knew exactly what this was. You didn't care until it affected you. This is why I have absolutely zero care for the people of New York freaking out about this, and I just find it hilarious. If you want to see real comedy, go look at the people in Martha's Vineyard freaking out about the fact that 70 migrants were bused there. Well, we just can't support this. We don't have the space. We don't have the funds and the resources. Yes, you do. You just don't care. So Eric Adams, this is on October 20th of 2021 when he was running for mayor. We should protect our migrants, period. Yes, New York City will remain a sanctuary city under the Adams administration. So he does support it. He does support the ideal of sanctuary cities. But when presented with the facts of what happens when you actually support this, it turns out he might be cutting tail and running. But here's the big deal. Will he honestly admit to the fact that people were wrong? That Democrats were wrong about this? Because I don't ever see anyone in the political game admit, either left or right, that they were wrong. They sidestep it and move on to another issue so they can have a segue to ride off into the distance so you don't have to criticize them and they don't have to bear the brunt of dealing with that criticism. Here it says, Mayor Adams issued an executive order suspending the city's right to shelter rules on Wednesday night. Under this policy, the city was required to locate private rooms for asylum seekers. This has led to hotels being overrun by migrants. And yeah, if you don't understand this, actually, in New York, a large portion of the hotels, the majority of the hotel rooms are actually taken up by migrants right now. So they're not even making a bunch of money off of people that are traveling to New York. Here it says, no asylum-seeking family that has sought shelter from us for over the last year has slept on the streets thanks to our colossal efforts, but without more support from our federal and state partners, we are concerned the worst may yet to come. So, these businesses are being mandated to support and house these people, and I don't know if you've seen the footage of what happens in these resource centers, I should say. Well, they become disastrous. The rooms are not upkept, and you can see this actually in places like Birmingham in the UK when they're taking care of all these Islamic migrants. They're dealing with all these Algerian and Albanian immigrants. And actually, a funny thing is, there are more Algerians and Albanians in UK prisons than there are actually in Algerian and Albanian prisons. Just a thought, just to put that out there. So here it says, according to a report from the nonprofit Federation for American Immigration Reform, as a result of the Biden administration's lax immigration policies, 61,000 illegal immigrants have come to New York City over the past year, and about 40,000 are on the taxpayer dole, receiving housing, food, and other benefits. These illegal aliens are placing a tremendous strain on city resources, and existing housing for the homeless is filled to capacity. Don't you worry, we're not going to take care of our homeless, we're not going to take care of our veterans, but we will house these illegal immigrants and spend all of your tax dollars to pay for them. Mayor Adams estimates that the Biden administration's immigration policies will cost the city $4.3 billion in 2023 and 2024, the report explained. These costs were not excluded in a recent fair cost study that found New York was home to 1.8 million illegal aliens, which cost taxpayers $9.9 billion. Okay, yeah, so they roughly have the amount of illegal immigrants in their state that we have coming across the border. Fantastic! Now let's just keep sending them there. Jokes aside, I'm going to move on and we're going to go ahead and cover this New York Post article. It says, New York just can't afford to remain a sanctuary city. And you know where else can't afford it? I've already said it and I'll say it again. Southern border states, southern border towns that are incredibly poor and do not have the funding nor the tax base that New York City does. I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. I will leave this in the description if you would like to go through it. It realistically covers something similar to the Timcast article, but it just talks about the fact that New York can't sustain this because they don't have the funds, but they're not the only ones. This should be something that is talked about across the country. It shouldn't just be New York can't afford to remain a sanctuary city. Neither can Texas. Texas can't afford to sustain all these illegal immigrants. Arizona can't afford it. New Mexico can't afford it. California can't afford it. None of these states can afford it because it's so many people and it's such a detrimental burden on the people who pay taxes that it simply can't be dealt with. I'm sorry. I'm not someone who sits there and says that we need to have the most strict immigration policy. I'm a big fan of legal immigration. We need to open back up the Ellis Island Project, but that's a conversation in itself for a different day, and people don't want to have that conversation. They just want to keep letting the border be open and having illegal immigrants flood into the country, and you know what? A big thing with the next coming election may in fact be illegal immigration, and it will be quite fascinating to see if the Democrats truly stick to this mantra of caring so much about immigrants that they want to establish sanctuary cities, when we see that they have effectively failed in operating sanctuary cities. That's all I've got for this. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section down below. I'm sure there's many people that disagree with me on immigration. Stay lovely, stay great. Thanks for watching. Peace out.